Вітаю, друзі! Вкотре поговоримо про те, як
Greetings, friends. Let's talk again how the aggressor state uses lies, fakes, manipulation, and discredited speakers in order to spread disinformation, both in Russia itself and around the world. Let's start with the refutation of another throw-in allowed by the deputy head of the Russian Security Council, Dmitry Medvedev, who voiced a new reason for Russia's military aggression against Ukraine. The world has come close to the threat of the Third World War. The special operation has become a forced measure to a response to the preparation of US aggression, Medvedev quotes to Russia Today channel. This is already a new interpretation, because previously Russian propaganda said that it attacked Ukraine because Ukraine was supposedly going to attack Russia, and now it turns out it was done to disrupt America's plans to attack Russia. It proves once again that the propagandists, it doesn't matter what was said before. The main thing is to produce new fakes and propaganda pieces every day. And now it is very clearly visible how Russia, through the mouths of its speakers with foreign surnames, is trying to dissuade the West from supplying weapons to Ukraine, particularly tanks. Thus, the decision to supply tanks caused real hysteria among Russian full-time propagandists. Some of them reported to frankly neo-Nazi manipulations. In particular, the same Margarita Simonyan said after Germany's decision, "Germany will send 14 tanks to Ukraine after being whipped by Washington. Gas cameras are also expected to be delivered near the summer." The mention of gas chambers is a forbidden technique in politics and refers to the times when Germany had already atoned for the sins of Nazism. Now the role of the Nazis in this war is being performed by Russia itself, while they are trying to reinterpret support for Ukraine as the use of German weapons on Russian lands. In particular, another propagandist Solovyov writes about this. "Germany has never learned the lessons of history. German tanks on Russian soil. Germany has de facto entered the war. The land is Ukrainian, and supporting Ukraine at this critical moment is nothing more than a fight against a new phase of fascism, which is Russia." It is interesting to observe how, in order to criticize the decision to supply tanks, Russia has raised the alarm of all its speakers who have a frankly marginal reputation or are unknown figures on the international arena. In particular, I quote the so-called French politician whom Russia Today called for help. It is about Florian Philippe. "The situation when Zelensky demands Leclerc tanks from France and as soon as possible is a disgraceful circus," wrote French politician, leader of the Patriots Party, Florian Philippe, on Twitter. What kind of patriot party is this, which is so loudly quoted by Russian state propaganda? I looked at the results of the last elections. In France itself, in 2022, the French parliament elections, the Patriot Party scored 0.51%, so it's a totally marginal structure. Elections to the European Parliament in 2019, 0.65%. These people are unknown to anyone in the West, but in order to create the image needed by the propagandists, they go and perform the necessary role. German politician Peter Bistron, who represents the Alternative for Germany party, has a similar status, and he also criticized the supply of tanks to Ukraine. Who is Peter Bistron? Let's see. This is the politician who invited Putin's godfather Viktor Medvedchuk to speak in the Bundestag when he was traveling around Europe with a proposal to recognize Russia's demands in relation to Ukraine. And if you read the archives, it will turn out that this German politician is none other than a representative of right-wing radical and neo-Nazi groups. Deutsche Welle writes about it. A few years ago, there was a scandal around him when he participated in labor training in South Africa, organized by a paramilitary organization that represents racist and right-wing views. Only white-skinned people can be members of that organization, and he did this training during his so-called business trip to South Africa. Another marginal person whom Russia called for help is the so-called ex-US intelligence officer Scott Ritter, who is already known to us. "American Abrams tanks will not reach the battlefield in Ukraine," he is quoted as saying by Russia Today. I remind you once again that this person was convicted of crimes of a sexual nature and even served time for them. Let's go further and find more critical attacks in relation to both Ukraine and our partners in Europe, now on the so-called World Socialist website. If you look at what kind of portal this is, which regularly posts anti-Ukrainian publications, it turns out that it is the site of the International Committee of the Fourth International International, which unites frankly marginal Trotskyist parties and which has no influence on the political processes in any of the countries of Europe and all over the world. This is yet another resource that Russia has used to replicate the myths and propaganda clichés it needs. With great enthusiasm, Kremlin propagandists also quote the article that appeared on Chinese portal Sina, where the author writes about Russia's possible victory in this war. If you look more closely, this is a portal that simply publishes various opinions from the internet. The author of the article in general is an anonymous contributor with the nickname Military Intelligence Sniper, who makes such predictions 5 times a day. And of course, traditionally, the statements of Russian propagandists are distinguished from the statements of officials. This time, the head of Russia's Foreign Intelligence Service, Naryshkin, stood out, accusing Ukraine of allegedly storing ammunition at nuclear power plants. This information is a lie, considering that nuclear power plants are under constant monitoring by the IAEA, and statements of this nature have already been made, including regarding Ukraine's preparation of a supposedly dirty bomb. This fake was debunked a long time ago, and the fake about the storage of weapons at nuclear power plants was also debunked. The call at the end is traditional: not to trust Russian propagandists in any of their forms of reincarnation, to trust the Ukrainian political and military leadership, the Ukrainian teleson, local and regional authorities. Goodbye.
Українському політичному та військовому керівництву, українському телемарафону, місцевій та регіональній владі. До зустрічі!